Hello, my name's Gavin. This is Genre Books. It's Tuesday. It's Tag Tuesday. And it's a time-sensitive Tag Tuesday. This is the Nonfiction November tag. So I've got to record this in November. And if I want anyone else who I tag to do it, I need to get it out the next available Tuesday. This tag was created by Book Travels, and I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat. There are 9 prompts, so let's get started. Prompt number 1. What motivated you to pick up your first non-fiction book, and can you remember it? The first non-fiction book I clearly remember having and reading was a massive illustrated encyclopedia called Great Aircraft of the World. Now, I've forgotten much of what I read there, although I can still tell my short Sunderland from my PPY Catalina. I read that book and the motivation was probably boredom. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I said boredom, probably just a lack of distraction. Time alone with a book. For a 7-year-old boy, he's not going to sit down and plough through hundreds of pages unless there is a dearth of other things to do. And I think at the time, that was probably the case. For boredom, you could probably read lack of television. I should imagine as a young boy, if I was just plonked down in front of the television day in, day out, that's what I would have done. Spending 3 years in a country which had one television channel which didn't start till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that limited your telly watching options. But I remember loving that book. I hadn't thought about it for years, as you might imagine, but it didn't take me long to find it online. Fortunately, I'm on a Read What You Own challenge, so I didn't follow the impulse to buy it. Prompt number 2. How do you choose your next non-fiction read? I have not that I have very hard and fast TBRs, but I have a separate TBR for one of my hobby horse projects, which is reading about the Hanseatic League. And that's because these are books that I don't own and I can only get at one place. If I'm reading non-fiction at home, it's just the same as anything else. What do I feel like? Do I feel like reading something? 9 times out of 10, probably more than 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fiction. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I enjoy non-fiction books. When I read a non-fiction book, I'm always thinking I should read more non-fiction. One of my favourite books that I've read this year has been a literary biography of E.F. Benson. Have I read any literary biographies since? No. Perhaps I should be putting these on my TBR more often. Prompt number 3. Do you take notes or annotate your non-fiction books? No, not any longer. At university, yes I would. Textbooks, I think, are an exception. By and large, I don't write in my books. I take notes at the books at the British Library. Obviously, you can't annotate the books there, but you also can't take the books out. So I do take notes because if I want to really remember something, I've got to write it down. And as I embark on another little project, I am making notes of some of the books that I'm reading because I want to be making videos about these books for the next year and a half. And I need to organise, formalise my thoughts rather than just plough through like I normally do. Prompt number 4. Have you read a non-fiction book that has challenged your beliefs and assumptions? Yes, and I hope to continue doing so. It's pointless just reading books about things I already agree with or people I already agree with. I'm being a little bit pompous. But I would temper that by saying I also will not read books by certain people when I know that they are not written in good faith, mendacious, divisive, polemic to an extreme. I think it's important to read opinions from all sides, but sometimes, on some subjects, someone is right and someone is wrong. Prompt number 5. How do you feel about the intersection of storytelling and factual content in nonfiction? Generally fine with it. When I'm reading history, I'm not a historian. I don't want an academic study, usually. I want something that has a narrative that I can follow. It's not always possible with every subject, but most people instinctively want to tell a story, be it fiction or non-fiction writing, and will adjust the writing to include some kind of narrative. Where you have to be careful is in ensuring that a narrative storytelling is still factual in non-fiction. I don't like lots of supposition. I certainly don't like fictionalization or imaginings of how things happened. If there are gaps in the narrative, there are gaps in the narrative. Live with it. Don't try and cement between those gaps. If I know or suspect you're making parts of the narrative up, I'm less likely to trust your interpretation of the factual pieces. Prompt number 6. Is there a topic you wish authors would explore? Yes. There is no English language layman's story of the Hanseatic League, which is why I'm reading all of the drier academic stuff around the subject. There is also probably not a market for, but also a lack of in the market, literary biography about pulp writers. Some absolutely, yes. Burroughs, Howard, Lovecraft. There's a lot written about a small coterie of the most famous writers. But having spent the last couple of years ploughing through pulp magazines, I do wonder who half of these people are. And in many cases, there's nothing. For most, you are lucky if you can find a full bibliography. And given the ephemeral nature of the entire pulp endeavour, I don't know that you're ever going to get that information. But I would like to know the background to some of these writers. Prompt number 7. Do you incorporate insights from non-fiction into your daily life? Yes, I don't think you'd be able to avoid it. I think especially anyone who reads history can't help but sometimes slot the narrative of current events into either a larger historical narrative or as a sad, tragic copy of some non-fiction historical tale. Why do you think so many booktubers who read history are a little bit down this November? Prompt number 8. Choose just one non-fiction book from your collection to highlight. Well, I can end on a high note then. The Gernsback Days by Mike Ashley and Robert A.W. Lowndes. So, Hugo Gernsback, he of the Hugos Science Fiction Awards, and the story of, here we are, a study of the evolution of modern science fiction from 1911 to 1936. Mike Ashley is a genre literature expert and a prolific writer and editor. And Robert A.W. Lowndes was there at the time and knows of which he speaks. I haven't read this. I'm looking forward to it. I'm probably not going to get the chance to read this in 2025, but it is absolutely almost number one book on my list for 2026 for reasons. And this is the kind of thing I was talking about. This finding out more about the, hopefully, stories about some of the writers and just the whole publishing era and world of the pulp magazines. Gernsback is an ideal way to get into the wider world. Prompt number 9, tag some others, which I will do below the line. Thank you to Book Travels for creating the tag. Thank you to Pat for tagging me. And until the next time, bye.